Уважаемые дамы и господа, приветствуем вас на дискуссионной сессии.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the session Achieving Balance, Senders versus Operators versus Carriers, New Tariff Initiatives. Now we invite Market Team, Deputy Manager and Director of Novolipetsk Metallurgical Factory, Sergey Likharev. Siberian Coal Energy Company, Denis Ilatovsky. Advisor to RUSAL, Evgeny Vinogradov. Monopoly Team, Deputy Managing Director at Russian Railways, Head of Center of Corporate Transport Services, Alexey Shilo. Head of Department of Tariff Formation, Methodology, Expertise, Analysis and Application of Tariffs in the field of freight and passenger transportation of Russian Railways, Vladimir Vargunin. Head of Investment Department of Russian Railways, Yury Bakerkin. Independent expert, Mikhail Burmistrov. Discussion moderator, host with RZD-TV, Marianna Ozherelieva. Hello, dear colleagues. Please be an audience that participates. Please give applause to our speakers. Please provide feedback. We have the market team now. And we have the monopoly team. Please welcome them. Today we will try to create something which we will discuss as tariff initiatives. We know that there's 2025, there's a target. Of course, the market shows different tariffs initiatives. We speak about add-ons, about discounts from the monopoly. But is this mechanism sufficient? Is the market in consent with what the monopoly is doing? And is there a way for a compromise? And in 15, 20 years to come, we'll be able to discuss the tariffs anyway, so it's a very relevant topic. Today we'll try to make it burning, discuss it, ignite the audience, so just please do not interrupt anyone, except for the moderator who's going to keep track of the time. Everyone sees the countdown. And first, moderator asks questions, and then you can ask questions to each other. As for the audience, we are going to have an interactive vote, and for us it is very important that you vote, every one of you. Please listen what needs to be done. Download the official forum app. So please find this app, download it. It's very important. We want to collect feedback from everyone. Then use the link for vote and vote for the options provided, which we'll have later in the screen. And you'll see also the main question there. We have Mikhail Burmistrov, an independent expert. He's going to be a kind of referee, and he will summarize the discussion. He will tell us who was more persuasive, the market, the monopoly. So were you able to download the app? Please project our vote to the screen. The panel members will also vote. Dear friends, it's a very important question. New tariff initiatives. What should that be? A revolution or evolution? Please vote, and we have a minute for the vote. While we are voting, a few words about why we chose this topic. We're going to offer new services, and a lot has been said about that. There are certain suggestions of how we could improve our interaction between client and service provider. We should understand that the price is crucial. It's one of the baselines, one of the main reasons why clients use railways. So today we will try to find an answer to the question, what awaits us, revolution or evolution? For the moment, the audience thinks that evolution is going to win. That could have been expected. Maybe yes, but maybe no. So the minute expired. So I guess we can start. And I think that we'll start from the market team. And my question goes to Mr. Ilatovsky. I think that everyone in the audience understands that coal today is the basis for railway transportation. And the question is very simple. For how long will you, coal miners, will transport your goods on someone else's expense because you are highly subsidized? You have a minute. Last time we asked for discount in 2015. I checked it, and then we also had subsidies, and we only got 13% over inflation, so it's hard to say who's asking for what. Rather, we obtained a load, and if we take the whole industry, so about $100 billion per year, because these are add-ons that the coal industry pays, all of it pays on top of the tariffs. So actually, we are existing in the conditions of add-ons, not discounts. So Russian Railways sometimes offers discounts for the southern direction and northwest. This is their reaction that the volumes dropped, and consigners do not ask for anything. Sergey Likharev, please, now we expect some changes in tariffs, but who would suffer, metallurgists or the railways, if the metal products abandon railways? There's a widespread quote that everyone knows: we wanted it to be better, but it turned out as usual. So what you are saying, it's very unbalanced, and the ones to suffer are those metal manufacturers that have no group consumption. And it's not quite logical, because in class 3 there's only metal scrap, but coke, which is basically coal, it belongs to the second class now. And it was untimely, because we agreed that before 2025 nothing's going to be substantially changed. But it's again like we have never seen that, but yet again we have it. So these are disbalance, lack of logics, and untimeliness. These are three reasons. Evgeny, for example, if we imagine a bright new world, how you interact with the railway. So what about RUSAL? Why wouldn't you like to pay, and what for wouldn't you like to pay to the railways? As for RUSAL, like the rest of the business, they are not ready to pay for someone else's risks, for someone else's business development. I mean, other consigners. And I think that when we discuss the tariff system, we should first of all speak about the responsibility. Risks are too high, and now Russian Railways development program has been approved. There's a certain status recorded, but the paradigm of the tariff system depends too much on the freight turnover and the structure of oil and coal freight which form the main basis for cross-subsidizing. So in the conditions of development, this becomes ever relevant. So what should be done when plans are brilliant, but for some reasons they won't be implemented? Your time is out, sorry. So who's going to pay for that? So the coal company representative told us that there are a lot of add-ons, but almost no discounts. So as the monopoly representative, I can say that we provide more discounts than add-ons, but it depends on what kind of freight that is, and I think it is fair. As for the turnover, coal is very important. We have a lot of expenses on that freight, but from the standpoint of revenues, it's not so significant and is covered by other types of freight. And metallurgic products, oil products, they cover this subsidized coal tariff. I think the discounts today is a very efficient tool. We provided more than 48 discounts, and we invited more than 9 million of highly profitable freight. Thank you very much. As for the tariff system, do you think that in those conditions of micro and macroeconomy, there are prerequisites for changing the system? Are freight owners ready for that? Will it work? Tariffs, it's an evergreen discussion, but we should change the system definitely, because we see that those who have expensive freight, they want to make it cheaper and decrease their transport costs, and those who transport cheaper freights and they have preferences, they understand that after 2025 they will need to provide us with higher volumes, and we need to discuss the investment tariff. And the economy tells us that processing industry with high added value should be developed. This is why we want the tariff to be simple and clear and provide for the investment development of the company. And we suggest we create the digital price list. So we don't want individual tariff products for every client. Dear colleagues, Evgeny, investment tariff, yes or no? 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 So who's going to pay for the investment tariff? The question is very profound and interesting, and it seems to me that we should say that it's not paying the investment tariff, but investing into it. So we do not ask you to pay the Russian railway company, but we want you to invest into Russian railways. And we were talking about our long-term program yesterday, and we're not speaking about the investment tariff as a tariff that we want to introduce. It's a gradual immersion, I would say, and this tariff is necessary for a very simple reason. Colleagues from the coal sector know that well enough, because after 2025 our possibilities for the throughput capacity development will require a lot of effort. Well, excuse me, I have to interfere.
Well, we do not agree with this. Okay, so you can just refer your disagreements now. Well, by our rules, I give only 3 minutes per answer, please. Dear colleagues, whether you understand it, take it as a just practice that the add-ons make about 100 billion rubles per year, and the investments at the level of 50 billions a year, and because of the program for 2018-29 hasn't met the objectives by 170 billions. So Otherwise, we pay 100 billions. The Russian railways can do something at 50 billion. So we pay much more than what can be used or utilized by the Russian railways company. So there is a big question then whether we pay for what. So, but how can we share this investment tariff? Well, those will share it who needs this investment into additional infrastructure. But as for Denis's question, Denis, first of all, the figures also need to be specified because correspondingly we have different figures from what you have mentioned. And when we speak about investing 100 billions and the company spent this year less than that, we should understand that the value of the project is not 100 billion. So development of the forest project is a specific project, and when we shift certain resources and postpone their utilization for a later period, this is justified. So we do not charge you more than we can spend. So I think that there is no reason to discuss this or to object against this. Well, what's wrong with these figures? Well, I think that 62 billion was spent on the average by the monopoly, and the peak was in 2016 at the level of 88 billion. So once again, we contribute 100 billion. So that means that we can expect that the overall value of the Eastern Polygon will be 0.5 trillion. And as a result, with the add-ons of 29 through 2025, we will have invest into the entire project of Transsibd. So what other investment do you expect from us? We will have invest by 100% the value of the project. We shall see what we shall see, whether this will be, as you just say. Well, we're running short of time. We have two stages in the projects. H is the value, the total value of this project is 1 trillion. And we have been analyzing it. And you also saw that we are transparent, and the payback pay period for investment is 29 years and perhaps even more. So when you say that we are asking to invest something which we cannot really use or realize, this is not just. Alexey will add. Okay, just a small comment. First question. What 100 billions are we talking about? Because it is 215 billion is the revenue of Russian railways from carrying charcoal. But when we speak about investments, that's not into infrastructure, but into carrying goods. And correspondingly, we have discussed that the second stage, in terms of the volumes that you are going to carry, can be through the development of additional infrastructure or setting priorities in buying more powerful locals, cutting costs and introducing technologies through which we can carry more cargo. Am I given 1 minute? Just imagine that you are in the end of the 1990s and you came to Sochi on a holiday with your family. There is no infrastructure here. You get a room at a hotel which is overbooked, and you're lucky still you have this room. But on each day there is the auction, and you have to bid for this room and either stay in this room by participation in this auction with a higher offer, or perhaps you will have to leave. The question is, will your holiday be enjoyable if on a daily basis you don't have any guarantees whether you will retain this room or not, and it will depend on the auction driven by prices? To whom you address? Nikolai. I will answer in a simple manner. So this is the system: take or pay. Pay ahead in advance and you will get the entire room for the whole holiday period. But once again, we are paying, we have paid, but the construction is lagging behind the schedule, behind the demand. So they tell us, wait for 1 more month, wait for 1 more year. So in my story, your family doesn't know whether you will have your room or not tomorrow. Okay, with consideration of the trend which is developing in the market and the volumes that we foresee, you will have your work for a long period of time, and the demand will grow. And we are very happy with this because we also will have our part of work, not just any work, but work paid well by fair tariffs. From this point, I don't think there are things just to dispute, because whatever development is planned, and when we say that tariffs are not fair, but we are not thinking now about period beyond 2025. We are planning for the period till 2025. And after 2025, please do not blame us for our surprise if the tariffs change overnight. So I think that we are starting now this discussion because we are interested in what kind of tariffs will be quoted beyond 2025. We're starting this well in advance. Okay, just speaking about your holiday story. Just imagine that you have booked the 2 rooms at a hotel, and 4 people will arrive, and but you come with many more people, and you decided to stay in 1 room. So this will be a great discomfort both for the hotel and for you. And this is the example of what was planned in the beginning of the year. You said that there will be the decreased volume of cargo, but you have paid, you have already invested into something, and I think that we need the long-term cooperation, long-term discussions ahead. Okay, once again, if we show lots of documents, you will see that the volumes will grow in carrying cargoes eastwards. The growth will not be in the western direction. 4 months ago, the government has approved the plans for investment. And now we are discussing that the monopoly cannot deliver the repair works or maintenance services or whatever, because there are short of contractors, subcontractors, and the pipes are leaking. And if we are speaking about our holiday story, so we stay at the room, but the water is not running, pipes are leaking, and so. Well, what about the capital repair? Of course, capital repair needs some money, and there are plans for capital repair, but what is planned and what is not planned? I think that till the year 2012, the charcoal manufacturers also spoke about increased volumes bound for west and northwest. So now I think that we have to construct faster and plan better so that not to face similar situation. So I would ask the market team, please be more active. Evgeny, your question. I will continue my topic of this status quo, which was established last year. We rest out and relaxed. The situation was more or less predictable. But now, do we have any reasons or for the forthcoming future or longer period to expect that this status quo would be broken on behalf of the Russian Railways Company? And another part of the question is, will this mean that if it is broken, that other partners also could initiate certain disbalances in future beyond 2025? Okay, I will take this question because it is addressed to me. I will be brief. To disrupt this balance, the monopoly will not cause this balance. And when I hear discussions about metallurgical cargo, these disputes are going about the tariff policy. The main thing is we consider the period beyond 2025, and we have agreed about some very stiff framework of our relations. And as for 2025 and onwards, we have to discuss and establish a similar framework as soon as possible. And this balance will not be possible when all the parties agree in advance. And when all the participants of the market, apart from the Russian Railways Company, are ready for such agreements, then we would be ready even to discuss and sign the agreements in advance. Do you trust it? Do you believe these words? Am I right in understanding that any tariff initiatives that have been already established, so they will be maintained till the year 2025? Yes, right. That was the main conditions which we agreed on. Today we are not planning any additional innovations for the year 2020. As we have agreed, indexation of tariffs, it will follow the planned policy. So you mean that 8% is what? 8% is a different story. So, but this is very specific matter, 8%. When the colleagues are talking about the baseline tariffs and the discounts and add-ons, we have planned for 2019 particular lessening of the overall finance, and all the preferences that had been given beforehand now can be cancelled. In my opinion, what we're talking about, this is the baseline financial, because 8% was included into the baseline aligned tariffs and rates. And when you revise rates, revise the price, then this is very negative for us, because beforehand you had not warned us that you were going to revise tariffs.
Yes,
Actually, getting back, now we understand that why for aluminum in the basic iteration that was calculated, if you remember, that was 0.8 for everything, with exception for oil products, and it was quite clear why the unification was in place. Then there were several decisions made regarding aluminum industry and sanctions, and we thought it was the way of state support. And sanctions are almost down regarding your company, and we've seen this situation that basic agreements will just get back. Actually, these were not basic agreements, so to say. There were add-ons for development of infrastructure, and those anti-sanction measures, we still feel those effects. And last year, the market was quite cautious around it. Aluminum prices went up, and someone got this hype for themselves, but you also benefited from it. Yeah, but we did not collect that much. We lost certain volumes and we had a lot of risks in that situation. Also, highly marginal aluminum. It's very sensitive to such volatility. Also, after this hype was collected, the price returned to normal, and now we are in such a situation when speaking about us enjoying tremendous profits. No, it's not so. So what was the volume growth? So we could provide you discounts for that volume probably. This probably needs to be discussed, but these 8%, let's consider it as an investment component which was already balanced in that primary regulation range that was adopted. It seems to me that we've discussed this topic, and my conclusion is as follows. We really need to meet each other often. Unfortunately, you come to us only when the situation is already very pressing. And the second question to Vladimir. Recently, there were a lot of tariff initiatives discussed, namely changes for semi-wagon tariff, and I mean empty semi-wagons. So we'd like to know when could that be implemented. Well, as for the monopoly, you know, the faster the better. But let me remind you that this decision was made by us in accordance with the request to decrease the price of state transportation. So 93% precisely of construction materials that are transported, and then you have construction materials, and then you have to return those wagons which are empty on the way back, and the tariff is rather low for that. So this is used for export wagons coming back. So what Mr. Shilo mentioned, so as for 2020, we do not reflect this decision in our tariffs for the next year. We also had additional decision on stimulating our digital sales channel. So we see it's quite fair when a lower tariff with ratios depending on the distance is redistributed, and for us it's going to be a decrease of cross-subsidizing. So as soon as we agree, we'll adopt it. Is it fair? Yes, we support this initiative and we see it as a positive thing for optimizing the freight flows. Denis, aren't you happy with the figures? No, that's fine. He can calculate it, you know. I just thought that monopoly, the monopoly team and the market team, well, if there's a monopoly, there's no market, you know. We do not like it either. I just wanted to comment the previous question. When the add-on is for a special company or a special industry, we argue about it. But when this add-on refers to someone else, other industry, for that we can discuss it for ages. So a long-term add-on is clear to everyone. It is on paper. It's not the Russian Railways decision. And if this document of high level was adopted, you do not change commas, you know, in this document. So long-term price list till 2025. Again, the monopoly is trying to find agreement with the market. How can it be done? The monopoly is always stronger. Moreover, we have a unique situation. For our monopoly, we have tariffs And our tariffs are also given to us by a department which is there to fight monopolies. So are you happy with the monopolies answers? Okay, Sergey, your question. My question will be to Mr. Vargunin. Following the logics. So the higher the class of freight, the more is the added value. And then, following the suggestion that metal scrap should stay in class 3, do you agree that from the Russian railway standpoint, the highest stages of processing and the most added value giving technology is the technology that makes scrap from metal and that makes rusting? So in the latest tariffs that we discussed, scrap is being transferred into class 2. Okay, we heard you. And after your comments, if you open those proposals which we sent to the Consumers Council, scrap is in class 2. As for transfers from one class to another, we think that to improve financial stability of the company, of the carrier, and to make it comply with the conditions, there should be no classes probably. It's the task of the government to identify classes, and we will just transport it according to the tariffs. And in certain cases, of course, we can agree on mutually profitable conditions. We can agree with you because we really worry about certain commodities like coal, for example. We always see a lot of novelties. We are very beloved, and this worries us a lot. We want something to be very clear. We want very specific rules so we could invest for the 15 years to come. So we are now constructing a seaport, and 3 stages are 15 billion. And I don't know the construction speed. So how can I get to this port? Should I construct it quickly or not? Or I should make this construction last for 10 years because anyway the throughput capacity would not allow me to bring coal to this port. So we want to understand each other. We want to have mutual trust for many years to come. So my question is to Alexey, who got offended when I said that the offer is unbalanced. So as for coke producers, mainly, and also iron ore concentrate, they have no demand inside Russia, which can obviously make them suffer if you change the class 3 tariff, if you increase it. So what's the solution? You know, we saw all this story with oil commodities. Certain companies had class 3 products, other companies had class 1 products. Then we performed this unification and there was a disbalance, but this disbalance was eliminated with special diminishing rates in order to keep the same load on the consignor. So see, just like that, we can do the same with coal because we do not want to have excessive load on the consignor. Okay, that's appropriate. It just needs to be transparent and on hard copy. Just about Federal Anti-Monopoly Service, we are a monopoly and we are scrutinized by everyone. So Denis is preparing these thick reports and just adopting something not approved and agreed with you, it's impossible. Okay, it's a monopoly market, but okay, if we have deregulated tariffs, free market, so just interact. And why are we paying those add-ons for the infrastructure development? I'm getting back to this topic. We are developing this infrastructure for whom? For the company. And if tomorrow the money we paid won't be used for constructing something, or they construct a bridge to Sakhalin that no one needs, or something between Moscow, St. Petersburg, a nice road, but why do you collect money from us and you invest it elsewhere? Just construct what you promised us. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. Well, as an option, probably you could consider participation of your company in the infrastructure construction. Why don't you look at certain options for developing this infrastructure together with other coal companies? I just remember Vysotsky's song, scientists and PhDs, when something doesn't work, you give the wrong effect, will come to you with brutal tools and will make everything work, you know. So return us our money, we'll come there, we'll construct it, and then it's a very complicated topic. Are you ready to provide such conditions? Like return the money back, then they will come and construct it. No, we're not going to return you anything because everything's already spent, like invested. But as for the years to come, we could discuss it. There was also a question on the take-or-pay agreement, on the long-term planning of volumes, on joint construction of infrastructure, and after 2025 we could consider development of certain hubs, and you know it well enough because there are certain bottlenecks which you need to develop. Now you are talking about your prospective port, so why wouldn't you consider joint participation in the infrastructure construction? Thus, you trust us and we trust you. We'll have joint long-term plans. We'll understand your volumes, your investment appetites. I think it's a very philosophic, scholastic discussion. I am saying that we are already paying add-ons for the infrastructure development. You are telling me trust us. Okay, we trust you. The government approved primary regulation range in March, and it says that 150 billion should be invested to the east direction. But you will invest only 50 billion, and then the same in 2020 and 2021. We are ready to trust, we are ready to invest. But if we speak about take or pay, and if we sign it right now, right away, are you ready to sign it? Will you provide the throughput capacity? This take or pay issue, we've been trying to sign it since 2012, and by now, unfortunately, you haven't agreed with it. In 2012, there were certain conditions stipulated because the document was signed by 30 participants, 30 stakeholders. There were certain conditions there, and nothing was implemented, including the long-term tariff. It haven't existed for a single year, and in several months you want to reconsider it. And just in December 2017, we got the governmental decree with the agreed program and long-term tariff. So now we are started just to argue in our professional topics. Maybe it's not interesting to the audience. Are you interested? Okay, thank you. Well, anyway, our trust is on paper now and approved by the government. So we do not want to be tested for trust. We just need to take this document and implement it. Tariffs are known, investments are known, area of investment is known. Let's just invest and construct it. For example, a company comes there and says, okay, we'll just move all the investment eastwards and we'll be on time. But then the government says something different, so it's worrying when your counterpart leaves for a certain period of time and tells you not to worry, and we see there's no construction going on, the infrastructure is not improving, this investment is not used. Well, I'm repeating myself, but it's the greatest worry we have. So I don't understand what kind of add-ons you are talking about, because we cannot implement what was agreed.
Okay, what's your final answer? As for the parameters that existed in 2012, you yourself are talking about and prove once again that all the target parameters that were included in the first stage of bomb construction have been delivered. And the cargo base of 2012 has been different from today, but we have fully served it, and in terms of infrastructure development as well. So when we speak about shifting investment to the left or to the right, to use investment is not the aim. The aim is to provide you, your consignees, consigners with the transportation of cargo in the volumes that you need, and all the target parameters that were planned, they were planned by years, and the company delivers these plans. But what as for the investment, these are the just daily practices of how projects are realized, and we do not reject or give up our promises. We never do this. Well, let us support the market team. Thank you very much. And the question on behalf of the monopoly. The first question to Evgeny, coming back to the dialogue that you started. So the company works in the scheme of taking the raw materials in the country and exporting the goods. So what about black metallurgy? Can we balance the inbound and outbound flow? How do you see at this plan, so to try to balance you? Well, as for the tolling schemes, I'm not sure to comment on that right now, but most likely we will not have this. But this is not the standing of the company. It's just that the tariffs should not suffer from this. But basically, we are very cautious about the local nearing of tariffs across different industries because it is not clear till the end how this development in different industries will proceed, and right now we cannot calculate what is going to be. But if we would like to bring tariffs closer to each other, the idea was about the entire tariff systems. Let us carry all goods, all cargo by one single tariffs. So if we carried the cargo, pay us. If we haven't carried it, then there will be nothing to pay. And then we will not suffer from this instability of the cargo base. When we try to solve the problem locally, I think that we arrive at even bigger issues, or might arrive at bigger issues. And this is very risky, a risky trend. So do you support evolution or are you against evolution? Okay, we will discuss it later. Are you ready to unify tariffs? I support the revolution. I started from this. But the monopoly will join this trend. Well, the answer of Evgeny is clear to me. I understand that you will wait and see what will happen in the black metallurgical industry, and if it works well, then you will agree, and if it is not working well, then you will disagree. But, well, this is my suggestion, so that we will wait. But the question is to Sergey. There is logistics, which you are talking about. There are tariffs that also exist today. Have you estimated what our suggestion can bring you? Will the logistics change because of this revised decisions? No, logistics, if it changes, but it will change not considerably, because logistics, of course, follows the changes in tariffs. But many things depend. Tariffs on many other things. So tariffs is only perhaps a quarter of the bulk of things that can impact. So at some particular routes, the situation can substantially influence the change in selection of the suppliers and so on, particularly in terms of transportation of scrap metal. But if scrap is now the second class tariffs, then this step towards balancing the tariffs and elimination of differences between classes, I think that this is a good idea, because but this should happen in a step-by-step manner, because even one decision in changing tariffs for scrap will not influence the entire system. But if we do nothing, and it's a question, if we do nothing, if we from the point of view of logistics, will keep it as it is, how much will we lose in metals beyond 2025? And what is your forecast? Well, I don't understand what you are asking now. If everything remains as it is today, if we do not try to balance or to even tariffs, but we are not going to lose anything. We are going to increase volume. And what can we lose? Perhaps metal will be carried in containers. Yeah, but still along the railway lines. But I understand your question. I understood this question only in relation of the scrap metal. But okay, but now I see what you were asking. So I think that you will not lose in scrap metal, but in all volumes. So when you transfer to container operations or operations by truck, what we're doing right now, the entire infrastructure is associated with the infrastructure which was built in the Soviet period, and it is mostly targeted at railway transportation, because technologically for coal, for aluminum, for metal, so railway is the most convenient technologically transport mode from the point of view of volumes that can be carried, the speed and many other parameters. So that's why we don't want to switch from railways to other modes of transport, but we would like to have flexibility enough, because in tariffs, in speed, in guarantees, there are different aspects that we consider every time. So if all the parameters are balanced, and you on your side, then you will not lose anything. Sergey, do you have more questions? So perhaps my final question: do you agree to try to blindly decide whether this is a coal or coke? Well, we are tasting. We are just in the procedure of tasting. We haven't made our decision. So if coals taken to metallurgical plants will grow in volume, then perhaps the coal needs to be brought into one category of tariffs. Well, now we're discussing whether you are ready to pay for priority access to infrastructure. You mentioned that quality of the service is important, but what about the priority? Are you ready to pay for this priority access? Perhaps no. Rather no, because stability and speed, these are two important parameters. And when we look at different elements of the cycle of implementation of the order, So the speed is not not the most important parameter. So we're not interested in very fast transportation, and we understand that if it takes 5 days to carry goods from A to B, it's okay. But if as access is just what Denis was asking in his story about the holiday, I think that we have already paid for the access inside of the tariff. And if you would like us to pay some add-ons, just like you paid for the carriage, but are you going to pay for the wheels right now? So, okay, and rails and the loco and some other, and you call it the add-ons. So, but you are not. But if you're offered the room a month ahead, colleagues, we are paying, but explain us, what are we paying for? We understand that we are paying for the carriage. And if you divide this into different pieces, then we don't understand that. I would agree if you say you're going to pay double the volume, especially for you. But for that, we would need to get rid of certain bottlenecks. Could you pay the add-ons? For example, this example of extending two stations adjacent to each other. So that's what we're talking about. If you are extending the infrastructure, we understand this is to benefit us. And if we do not pay, the infrastructure will be not available and the cargoes will not move. But then we need to discuss it specifically and technologically, because we understand your margin is not at zero level. Your margin is, like in any investment project, quite substantial. So you have some cushion which will provide you with a minimum needed payback volumes. And that's what we are discussing. But in my opinion, this is not what normally we mean when we mean the investment tariff. This is the guarantee for your payback of the investment. So we think that the tariffs should remain the same. Okay, the second question. I have asked it already to Denis in the process of discussion here. Has answered already. It was about the question of possibilities for joint development of infrastructure. So I don't have any more questions to this market. I would like to ask the question which I haven't heard the answer to, though I have indirectly asked this to Denis when I was meaning that he is the owner of many facilities, but also the operator. When we're talking about regulation of tariffs, we have to be frank and say that to some extent they have been already balanced. The operators, the Yury and de facto, have freedom, but shouldn't we make another stage and deregulate other things? Well, you can deregulate local traction and think about joint transition to setting trains mutually where it would be mutually beneficial. But complete deregulation should not be advised because it is the state-run authority. We're talking about a great network, lots of people involved, complicated technologies. And if in complicated technologies, every owner would have a piece of transceiver, somebody would be more lucky in owning Irkutsk-Ludyanka, and some would be less lucky and own the passage which is not of demand. So I think the deregulation here would be hectic, will lead to some hectic situation. We are more interested in technology-based approach to improve our carrying capacity at the expense of discounts and speeding up operations of some trains running along established routes, and we can achieve this together. So this technology is quite promising, and I think that it will give lots of answers to our questions about risks. Okay, let me comment first. As for operations or business, we have noticed certain improvements compared to the start of this process. When operation was under our mission, so we saw that the cargo turnover was much smaller, perhaps half smaller than it is right now. But when we speak about traction, then unfortunately we can run the risk of seeing the situation worsening considerably. So perhaps at some stage it will improve, but in the beginning it will be chaos, and so deregulation can disrupt lots of things with traction. And another point is about deregulation. Again, I don't agree that this is the monopoly, but when monopoly is from the point of view of railway operations, but not from the point of view of transportation. There are many stages where we de facto competitor to river operations and sea shipment or some other transport modes, and that's why it would be just to treat us not as a monopoly at large. So how would you assess it, that where we have competition, where it does exist between different modes, and when regulation of pipeline transportation, for example, is not applied, so why not to get rid of regulation of railway transport? I think that
That's a very right question. We've been trying to regulate it. We haven't got the results we want, but still we show that there's a market and we have excessive port capacity. If somewhere in your network you have excessive capacity for transportation and there's no competition there, I'm not sure deregulation will be beneficial for you. If you have excessive capacity, you probably won't be able to earn there. And the previous question's philosophy tells us that there are bottlenecks and we need to increase the tariffs there. And you should not postpone investment, and then using the right moment you increase the tariff. But let's imagine if there's competition. This can be discussed, but these are some local points, maybe the very last miles. Yes, perhaps it's about the distance, some short distances. I would say sections where there's point A, point B, lots of tracks, and there's also a river or a motor road. Okay, I got it. And also I had another question which will go to Denis, and now I reconsidered and I will ask Evgeny. What do you think? How fair it is today that Russian railways, with the tariff system that there is with these classes, is it a kind of regulator now? You mean that Russian railways is a regulator? Is it fair? Yes. I think it is unfair in general. That's why we are saying that we need a unified tariff, and then it will be a versatile fairness and justice. So I think Denis will have questions. Well, it looks like 1917, the revolution year. Please, no comparisons. It looks like 1949, that after industrialization, global change of cargo turnover took place. And then the decision was made to make railways profitable, and the tariff was changed, and they increased the tariffs for coal by 1.2 times. So that's a positive example, you know. So increasing coal tariffs, that's what I was saying. Look here, what's the picture? Speaking about status quo, which we have now, share of the freight transported by the railways. You have the tariffs, okay, and if you start changing those tariffs, for example, low-income industries grow and high-income industries and commodities go down, and everyone in this situation faces the necessity of paying for that. Okay, we are stable and our behavior can be predicted. Why should we adapt to the business of other companies and make this contribution? So, in your opinion, how this task can be resolved? So, if the tariff becomes too expensive, too high for certain companies, they will stop using railways. What's the expensive tariff? It is such a topic when it's discussed in the annex to the price list, but if you look from the business standpoint, it's a different picture. Coal companies probably exceed metallurgic companies in terms of EBITDA. Yes, highly marginal freights, and their owners always try to decrease their tariffs. I will reveal a secret that everyone is trying to decrease their tariffs. Of course, that's natural, but if you only had a single tariff, you could argue that we have a single tariff, here's your freight, and you pay for it. What's the problem? That's the effect of monopoly. A monopoly can always pull someone to their side. Okay, Alexey? Is that it? Thank you very much. Let's support the monopoly team. So one of the last phrases Alexey said that everyone, all freight owners want discounts. And I had a feeling that we are in a social security office. We have 3 clerks here. So there's the single entrance and 3 clerks there, and everyone is asking for something. You are speaking about some kind of market, and there's a rhetorical question if there is a market at all. Is it some mythical market? But there's operators market. You are not saying that operators are bad. Perhaps we could invite an operator here to participate in our discussion. So let's decide who is who. They said they are not a monopoly. We are providing commercial services. We are providing a product that consists of different components. You are working in the domestic market and international market. When you work in the international markets, you don't come to them and ask for something. There, you comply with their conditions. Okay. Let's clarify it. Are you ready to some kind of transparency? And if we speak about market conditions, if you are given a specific solid price, will you be happy with it? So if there's a fixed price, if there's fixed volume, perhaps a take or pay principle or some deregulation. Well, hold on. This is a revolution you are talking about. No one of us was not saying anything like that. Dear colleagues, if we have a certain established balance of demand and supply, this means there's a market. It can be monopolized and partially monopolized, but there's a market. And it works. In certain aspects, this market is more monopolized, so accordingly, there's the influence of anti-monopoly bodies, but there's a certain balance. So we cannot say that there's no market, first of all. Then, actually, if we take our company, so secondly, any buyer, if they buy whatever, any commodity, sausages of fuel in the fuel station or buyer of Russian Railways services, they will never be happy with the price. They want it fast, they want it good, but for a cheaper price, lower price. But the point is that we need to find a balance. So there's no miracle, and the question is that we need to find the balance and the right point. And thirdly, We behave similarly in all the markets. We negotiate with Russian railways, and a month ago, for example, in the United States, we had similar negotiations with the Norfolk Southern National. So in the local, domestic American market, there's a monopolized carrier because the local market is monopolized. So you come there and you just feel at home. Same questions, same discussions regarding tariff and operational efficiency and certain aspects of their monopoly behavior. So 80%, it's all the same. The only difference is the language. So these situations are not unique. And finally, for the dessert, I think the solution is in finding some well-balanced points when we still transport our commodities on the good price, and we give the opportunity to our supplier. I don't mean Russian railways only, but we have this with sea and with motor. We give them the opportunity to reinvest part of this tariff into their capacity, into their facilities, thus providing us with a good service. So it's a cycle, you know. Denis, what's your proposal to make it a win-win? I would like to comment this idea of market or non-market, monopoly or non-monopoly. Fortunately, we don't have to wake up and decide, I'm the monopoly this morning or I'm the market this morning. There's federal legislation which stipulates what the monopoly is and what they do, etc. So if it says in the law that it's a monopoly, it's a monopoly, you know. As what refers to improving our joint work, it seems to me that throughout this long period of time we worked together, we found good solutions for our work, and we take well-balanced decisions eventually, and we try to stick to them. And now we are remembering what was several years ago. This means it's a good discussion. And as for improving our joint work, what can be done? You just need to take into account weak and strong sides of everyone. So what we can do, we can purchase those heavy wagons to increase the capacity in the underdeveloped infrastructure. So the minimum bar for BAM1 in 2019, we complied with a plan thanks to those heavy wagons. We can develop adjacent points. We can improve wagon operation technology. So we have a lot of things we could do, and the economy will work. Russian Railways is a profitable company. Coal industry very much depends on transport, and this year 75% of our cost is transport. And that's a lot. So we pay a lot and we work together. We are a kind of symbiosis, and okay, we got it. Thank you very much. And Evgeny, how can we make conditions appropriate for everyone? I've already expressed it, but they won't be appropriate, you know. But anyway, any changes will touch someone's interests. Probably it's impossible to find a balance in such a way than to make everyone happy. But globally, if we speak about development and the results of all these activities, it's about lyrics, and anyway, you will have to make it step by step and take everyone's interest into account. And there might be an antagonistic position, but it's just what it seems. But it's not what it seems. We can say that we really improved our interaction with Russian Railways. So it's no ambush. I'm really saying that we are moving towards each other, trying to meet each other's expectations. So basically this process is an ongoing process. Let's thank the market team and let's finalize it Vladimir, you were saying that you were for revolution, and are you sure? Yes, but just after 2025, because without agreeing, you know, you cannot make a revolution, you can burn everything to ashes, but we first need to agree. And in our opinion, revolution is about digital technology, and it will allow us to get to everyone and prepare individualized products for every client. And anyway, we'll be agreeing, but in order to start agreeing, we need a small revolution. Yury, colleagues heard you about the investment tariffs. Are there any brilliant solutions to be expected? Tomorrow we'll start discussing it with the colleagues, and by 2025 they will wake up in a new hotel with good pipes and renovations. Everyone wants discounts. Will you be able to provide discounts to everyone? Actually, we are ready to prepare individual tailor-made solutions for everyone, and well, finalizing this very interesting format. We are really talking very often, but probably now it was the first time when it was so vibrant and emotional in front of the cameras. So I would like to thank everyone for this discussion. So as for the revolution or evolution, if I may, when I looked at the vote results, I was afraid of that many revolutionaries in this room, but I was happy that we'll start only this revolution in 2025. But when you know the date of the revolution, this means it's an evolution. So we'll step by step apply all those decisions that we make additionally. So the key point which was mentioned today is that everyone should happy, and to make it come true we need to talk a lot and discuss things. Thank the Monopoly team. Dear colleagues, please take your phones, open the apps and vote. Could you please project the question into the screen? So, new tariff initiative. Do you think it should be an evolution or a revolution? As far as I remember, people have doubts. Well, Monopoly is messaging the colleagues for them to vote for revolution. My phone is off, you know. Please, everyone, make your choice. Does it work? I did vote. Please give us the results. As far as I remember, we have had fewer revolutionaries. So people in the room, and now revolutionaries became fewer. Well, I voted for the revolution first, but I thought it will just look like a revolution. Your situation is always complicated. So revolution 40%, evolution 60%. So these are the times we live in. It's complicated, but I think the main principle is a win-win situation. I would like to thank everyone and thanks to the audience for supporting us. This was the format we used for the first time, and I hope to continue it next year. And thanks a lot. And what about the expert? It was such a heated discussion that we forgot about our expert. Now, Mikhail, please. Mikhail Burmistrov, CEO of analytical company. So what's your opinion?
I don't have a microphone. I support the customer, and in this respect, I will share what I disliked in the opinion of each of the teams, and then we'll draw the conclusions. So as for the reference to the law, which prescribes what a monopoly is, this doesn't mean much in the markets because it depends on the actual activity of the monopoly or each side. So on behalf of the monopoly, they said, and I heard, so the monopolistic views. They said, for example, so that everybody could have sufficient discussion, and it feels like they meant that they will see what they will see, but they will do what they will decide to do. And I will repeat my own words by saying that the mistakes need to be accepted and recognized. So I didn't hear in the monopolies opinion that they recognize their mistakes. They said, yes, we didn't have time to spend all the money and so on, but perhaps they should have said in continuation, please help us, or perhaps you can advise us somehow. So when I make a mistake, I always recognize a mistake and draw certain conclusions. So I think that what we need is the conclusion. As for the market position, unfortunately, we didn't hear the opinion of the customer, because the fair tariff, if the coal costs $100 and the tariff, which would be a tariff for coal costing $50, so this fairness of tariffs is tricky, because sometimes you're talking about tariffs plus add-ons, sometimes tariffs including the add-ons, but what we mean by the add-on is something which reflects on the changes in the market. And unfortunately, I didn't hear here from this point of view, I didn't hear what sort of solution can be offered, because we are the country that exports a lot. When we are talking about the long-term program objectives, then the objectives are associated with the need to support the domestic economy, but the market driven approach should be growing the export, and we have to reflect on the changes. If the ton costs 100, then the tariff should be higher. But if the ton costs 50, then we should lower tariffs. But this would be fair. And in conclusion to the discussion of revolution or evolution, I would quote another reference regarding the investment into the Russian Railways Company, because the most important for any investor is the trust. We invest into the sphere or project and into the company which we trust. And critically important is the matter of trust. It's not the issue of individual tariffs, but it is the matter of trust, the question of trust. The trust that the tariff imposed is fair. And the main important element of trust is the consideration of different players in the market. And if the rules of the game are the same for everybody, and everybody wins or everybody feels bad, then the market adapts to it and gets broken. So there should be different tariffs for different players. And I think quite often the issue is not in whether we move goods or not, but whether we satisfy orders by 100% or by less percent. And quite often we cannot understand the reasons why somebody's orders are not met by 100%. So in conclusion, the objective to see who is the winner and who is the loser, I think that the winner is who is meeting the customer needs better. And it depends upon the right understanding of KPI. which explains why the most balanced approach in assessment of the standing here, I would say that Mr. Shilo's standing is expressed in the better way, because he always refers to agreed KPIs that do not contradict the KPIs of the senders of the cargo, the turnover, the timelines, and such. So this is the standing which is balanced with the standing of the customer. And when we ask who wins, I would say the winner is the Russian Railways company in the part where the company thinks in terms of the market KPIs. And so far, they are not getting into the minds of the top level directorates that are less oriented at the market. But in the part of the company which is more market oriented, so the KPIs are understood well and the company wins. But on the other hand, when the market says we want to support the internal market, I would be cautious in that, because the black ferrous metal market is driven by the domestic operations much more than export operations. So I would very much be cautious about judging the efficiency by export operations, particularly when we speak about the fairness of tariffs and when some ideas are discussed but then put into the basis of our policies. Thank you very much.